After we announced my pregnancy, my sales planned to humiliate me. I've been married to Harry for 7 years. His sister, Kayla, brings a lot of negativity into our lives. I initially loved Kayla, but over time, my view of her changed drastically. She is poisonous, manipulative, and really negative. Knowing the kind of person she is, I've worked hard over the years to be on her good side. In the past, Harry dated his sales best friend when he was 17. They eventually broke up because Harry felt pressured to be with her. His Sael insisted that he should be with her best friend, and when he didn't agree, she went crying to their parents. While Harry and I were meeting and falling in love, his parents were encouraging, but Sael always treated me coldly. She would constantly bring up Harry's exes, reminding him of how well they were doing and suggesting he get back together with them. Harry thought this was strange and asked her to stop. Sael would deliberately invite one of Harry's exes whenever his parents called us for dinner, claiming she had run into them that day. She doesn't follow me on social media, but she checks my Instagram constantly. If a man comments on my photo, she would go to her brother and complain about how I was sharing indecent images of myself. Harry and I would chuckle at her claims. Sael persuaded Harry to break up with me when we agreed to live together, telling him I had many defects as a woman and she could find someone better. This comment really hurt me. As soon as Harry and I were engaged, everyone started congratulating us. But I noticed Kayla was quiet and then suddenly left the gathering. Later, she called Harry crying and yelling about how she felt she should have been the first to know about our engagement. She then messaged me, almost threateningly, advising me on how I should treat her brother. I left her message on scene, which I know offended her. Every time Sael saw me, she started to ignore me. She stayed involved in all the wedding preparations, even though my future mother-in-law and fiancé called her out on it several times. Her criticism of the wedding reached a new level, as she freely expressed her unhappiness with my decisions. One day, Kayla overheard me talking about the centerpiece with my future mother-in-law. She started to make fun of me, stating how my decision had no class and that this was why she wanted her brother to marry someone better. That was the tipping point, and I lost control. I made it clear to her that she was no longer invited to our wedding and yelled at her that I couldn't stand her continual taunting and criticism. Shocked and gasping in surprise, Kayla was infuriated, even by my mother-in-law who backed me. Later, Kayla contacted Harry, complaining about how I embarrassed her and insisting he should control me. Harry strongly insisted that he supported my choice and that she would not be invited to the wedding. She grudgingly texted me a sincere apology, but I was already tired from getting ready for my wedding and wanted nothing to do with her drama. She did visit our wedding, but she arrived looking like she was attending a funeral, wearing a black floor-length gown with a veil. Everyone was stunned. She visited everyone, sharing her grief at losing her brother to another woman. My husband approached Sael about her discomfort with her wedding attire, saying she had the right to wear whatever she chose. She tried to portray herself as the victim, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law ultimately ordered her to leave. Ever since that day, I avoid her. I forbade Sael anywhere near our kid when I delivered my son Nate. She tried to oppose it, but my husband's parents had my back. They supported my choice and knew exactly why I wanted Sael far from my infant. Sael suffered a miscarriage with her then-boyfriend Jamie 2 years ago. We felt bad for her and chose to be somewhat more lenient. She could connect with our kid Nate, so we would welcome her to our house despite her behavior with me. She has been rather lovely to our son, which is shocking. She constantly talks about how difficult her life is, how things never seem to go for her, and blames ex-friends or managers for upsetting her life. I've found over time that she is never wrong in her thinking. She is always attempting to get people on her side by playing the victim card and hardly acknowledges any flaws in confrontations. She chose to get married this year and invited everyone except us. Harry was surprised to learn we were not invited. She began to explain how she won't let me come because I would cause a disturbance at her wedding. I called her and asked her why she would think something like that. She began to say that she had deliberately dressed in all black for our wedding, so now she was worried that I might do the same. I informed my spouse straightforwardly about how manipulative she was. After discussing it with his parents, Harry decided to let Sael know they would neither be attending the wedding nor would they pay for it. This made Sael cry, and she began to blame me for starting this disaster. Her husband told her she had no right to be pointing fingers at me. Kayla apologized and asked for forgiveness, but I was hesitant to forgive her. Her wedding to Jamie went perfectly. We all showed up and had fun. Not even 6 months later, Kayla appeared at our door, complaining about her marriage failing. Harry and I let her stay with us, where she would spend endless hours venting about her husband. They appeared to be struggling to conceive, and Kayla was obviously blaming Jamie for everything. When I went to speak to Kayla, she insisted it was entirely her husband's responsibility. She would be hyper-focused on our lives and try to create things that didn't exist. When I was running late for work, I would occasionally grab my work clothes so I could finish my workout, have a bath, and change into my business wear. Ciel observed this and would have many questions about it, including why I was bathing or why I even needed to visit the gym. I didn't give it much thought and would tell her how I liked keeping my weight and how I disliked visiting the office all sweaty. Mil was telling us about a friend of hers who was divorcing. She left her friend's spouse and grabbed half of his assets. Ciel stopped her abruptly to ask my husband whether he and I had signed a prenup before we were married. My husband told her straightforwardly that he and I both made rather good money and we felt no need for a prenup. Ciel snorted and began to say that he could be blindsided any day and that cheaters abound today. Her statements offended me, so I asked her to clarify exactly what she meant. Ciel then began to remark how I was obviously meeting someone, as I was usually carrying a change of clothing everywhere. She said that as Harry's sister, it was her obligation to warn her brother. Phil and Mil arrived right away to save her from continuing to fabricate such things and advised she shouldn't interfere with others' affairs. Ciel continued to emphasize that she was only trying to be there for her brother and began to joke if our son Nate was indeed Harry's son. My husband was enraged and informed her that she was not a mother yet and that her child would be better off in paradise than with someone like her. Kayla's lips hung in stunned disbelief. My husband left Kayla complaining about her being a shameless person trying to ruin everything. Kayla began to wail, expecting comfort. She turned to Jamie, but he never spoke. My husband never has this kind of mental collapse. She eventually got up from her chair and dashed into the toilet. My husband was boiling over. I stroked his hand, and Mil arrived to cool him down. Mil and Phil understood how annoying she could be. My husband apologized for what his sister had said about our son. He apologized to Jamie but totally ignored Kayla. We barred her from everything so she could get in touch with us after lunch. Mil and Phil spoke with us and decided Kayla had gone too far. They could see how their usually quiet son had gone wild after Kayla had persisted in pushing him. We last spoke with her a year ago, and everything has been running smoothly. 2 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant. This was quite unexpected. We decided to let everyone know on my husband's birthday. Mil and Phil were throwing a great celebration in their lawn. Ciel chose to show her face after hearing about this from others. When we saw her, my husband and I staggered, coming to hug Harry. Ciel told him how much she had missed him and how sorry she was for their last talk. My husband advised his sister to be apologetic to me. Ciel nodded and looked at me, then apologized. She informed me that she had been attending therapy for the previous few months and came to see how inappropriate it was for her to treat me like that. Although I disagreed with everything she said, I nodded as I wanted to be polite to her in front of everyone. Mil and Phil checked in on us and informed us that if we felt uncomfortable, they would kick her out. Harry, however, insisted on not creating a scene, so we decided to let this go. Ciel was laughing and socializing with everyone during the celebration. She mentioned visiting a therapist, so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Harry spoke movingly about how he thought he was the luckiest man on earth, appreciative of yet another year spent with a lady like me. When it came time to cut the cake, his remarks made me blush with delight, as we were when we first started dating all those years ago. I couldn't help but appreciate the fact that my husband and I were still intensely in love. Then Harry and I made the decision to let everyone know some fantastic news. Grinning, we said we were having a baby. Everyone paused to consider before yelling in delight. My mother rushed up to hug me and started to cry. Phil saluted Harry and myself, tears streaming down his face. Everyone was eager to know whether we had chosen baby names and was clearly delighted for us. Ciel was the one sore thumb that stood out. She seemed stunned, her mood changed, and she simply turned away from us, appearing irritated. I assumed maybe she was processing things slowly, although I was a little concerned thinking she would ruin yet another party for us. I was sidetracked with other individuals approaching to chat. I got up to assist my in-laws carry lunch, but Rick and my parents begged me to stay seated, telling me I should not even move at this point. Ciel approached me, beaming, as I was calmly waiting for my husband to bring me a meal. Lively, she said that she personally wanted to offer me dinner since she was so excited about my pregnancy. She handed me a dish, even saying as she passed me the plate, "I want to make it up to you for all the times I've been nasty to you in the past." I nodded and politely accepted. I was ready to start digging when I fortunately found she had put shrimp on my dish. I know I am quite allergic to shrimp, so I was surprised Ciel even brought me this. Disappointed, I shook my head and got up to get my own lunch. Jamie approached me at that point to wish well on my pregnancy. After a little conversation, he asked me why I hadn't been eating. Jamie reassured me not to worry and removed the dish from my hands. I pointed out how Ciel had served me shrimp, probably by error since he enjoyed eating shrimp. He told me he could have this dish, and I could buy a fresh plate for myself. I nodded, grinned, then turned aside. Jamie began to puke and retch across this dish. 5 minutes later, not even 5 concerned everyone stopped eating and watched him stagger to get out of his seat. Concerned, Harry and Kayla hurried towards him. Jamie gestured at his plate, then at his throat. Our eyes grew wide with amazement as we realized what he had eaten had definitely made something wrong with him evident. Jamie passed out, then everyone gasped in amazement and worry. Kayla hurried over to examine his dish, and her eyes grew shocked. She turned to stare at me and inquired whether I had handed her husband my plate. I nodded. Someone called for an ambulance amid the tumult, and he was hurried to the hospital. Through all of this, Kayla was sobbing nonstop and was staring angrily at me. We were later told that Jamie had been poisoned. Knowing that the plate belonged originally to me, I nearly passed out upon hearing this. Jamie consumed what may have poisoned my baby and me, not yet known to Harry, Mill, Fell, or my parents. Since nobody knew what was in the food he consumed that had caused him to faint, the police were summoned to get evidence from it. Jamie is still in recovery in the hospital while I'm typing this. Kayla stayed with him overnight. Relatives calling to find out what happened to Jamie and who might have poisoned him have my husband and I fielding calls. What has transpired shakes Mill and Fell. They are sleeping over at our house since they are terrified to return to their own house. Nobody knows what happened abruptly while everything was going so nicely. Telling everyone that the plate originally belonged to me and how Kayla had come and presented it to me makes me terribly afraid. Should this evolve into an inquiry, I will have to tell the cops the truth. Though most importantly, I am now rather concerned about what my sale could do to me. I feel quite awful about what has transpired. I don't want to be around her, nor can I bring my kids anywhere close to her, as she obviously has no restraints about trying to poison me. I feel bad about handing Jamie my meal and maybe contaminating my bill. Update 1. Whoa, thanks for the thousands of comments on this post in just a few hours. I never would have guessed I could have received these many answers. I typed this earlier and had shaking hands. I haven't been able to sleep, though what everyone says, I do feel somewhat accountable for the event involving my bill. I should have simply tossed the dish away. I'm not sure why I let him grab it from me. I keep crying about his future, knowing something is wrong. My hubby has been hovering close to me, though he doesn't know what I know about his sister. He believes I'm only worried. I agree with the remark saying I should get down and gently chat to everyone, although I'm not sure if everyone will believe me. Mill and Fell do have security cameras set all around the house, given that this birthday celebration took place in their backyard. I am confident they could check and confirm via their camera that Kayla presented me the plate. I'll speak with everyone tonight, then update. Update 2. We then chatted, and I am very happy to have the nicest in-laws on planet Earth. Mill and Phil are already staying over with us. So I sat down with Harry and them over dinner to let them know I had something crucial to share. I began by inhaling deeply, the weight of the circumstances slumping on my shoulders. Everyone gathered around. I related the birthday party events, including how Sael had handed me a plate of prawns and Jamie had unintentionally consumed it, causing his sickness. Their shock and incredulity reflected my own as I spoke. Mill and Phil looked at each other, clearly worried. Harry's face transformed from uncertainty to rage. I went on expressing my concern about Sael's intentions and past attempts to hurt me. Faced with the possible repercussions for myself and our unborn kid, I hesitated to share this information. Being the pragmatic woman she is, Mill advised right away, looking at the security camera tape, given the gravity of the matter. Phil nodded in agreement, though clearly affected. Harry stayed quiet to process the startling disclosure. Reviewing the security footage from their camera app, the truth was indisputable. The video shows Sael presenting to me the poison plate, and then what happened to cause Jamie's suffering. The weight of the data made no space for uncertainty as the knowledge sank in. Emotions ran strong. Now totally aware of his sister's evil intentions, Harry battled to control his wrath. Their daughter's activities horrified Mill and Phil, who also found the extent she had gone to cause disturbance shocking. Stunned in silence, we tried to figure out why she would act in such a manner. Given this is a very serious issue, my in-laws have opted to forward this material to the police. Following this disclosure, Jamie is the one who has to lodge charges on Sael. Hence, Phil and my husband will be visiting and meeting him after he recovers. I want to cry every time I consider how I let Jamie have my poison dish. I have no idea how Jamie will react. I am very anxious about him, so I cannot eat anything right or sleep. I will let you know about anything noteworthy. Update 3. Alright, lads. I'm back with an update at last. Although I know it has been a month since my previous update, right now I'm a pregnant woman experiencing a lot. First things first, she was detained after seeing the proof my in-laws handed the recording to the police. Kayla admitted everything right away and did not even dispute the claims. She started crying. Jamie was as startled as any of us when my husband approached him about what had transpired. My husband told him he would always be a part of our family, regardless of what he decided to do. My husband advised him to press charges against his sister since this was such a wicked thing to do. Once Jamie recovered, he not only chose to prosecute charges but also sought a divorce. Emotional and begging them to pardon her, Kayla called Mill and Phil. As it happens, Kayla is pregnant herself. She tried to control them by telling them they should do this for the benefit of their granddaughter, begging them to bail her out. Phil strongly advised her nevertheless that she should at last learn to own her acts and that they were done coddling her. Though Mill is quite depressed about what is happening to her daughter, she knows that her actions cannot be simply forgiven. The cops discovered proof she had tampered with the meal meant to harm me, which backfired and resulted in injury to her husband. She has been charged with several offenses, including risking life, causing damage, and tampering with food, thereby compromising integrity. Kayla had been pleading with Jamie not to charge her. Fortunately, Jamie's mind is set on punishing her. Her court hearing will begin shortly. I doubt she can flee this time. My son and I are doing okay. To everyone inquiring in the meantime about what his aunt has done, he is clueless. We want our son to know and avoid these circumstances, hence Harry and I have discussed and we do intend to sit down with him and tell him the truth. Having a difficult but absolutely vital conversation with a young child will be challenging, but essential. As instructed by my doctor, I also get frequent ultrasounds for my pregnancy every 2 weeks. We want the kid to be a surprise, hence we do not intend to find out her gender. Knowing what has happened to Kayla, my parents have been somewhat protective of me. They are urging me to see a therapist since they are concerned this could compromise my psychological well-being during the pregnancy. I agree with them, as while behaving normally, I have a deep-rooted phobia of what Kayla did to my meals and avoid eating any outside food or anything I have not made myself. Hopefully, my husband will help me to overcome this illogical phobia, as he knows about it and supports me all through. Update 4. I last checked in 8 months ago. Kayla is a prisoner right now. She came out guilty on the allegations, though I never went to her court hearings. Occasionally, my in-laws would tell me how Kayla came clean to the court, admitting years of jealousy of me. She had always dreamed of one of her best friends marrying my husband, hence when he started dating me, she would always try to harass me. She became jealous when we told my husband's birthday party we were expecting, as she was also going to reveal her pregnancy. She wanted to share her wonderful news since she had miscarried once. But she felt we stole her opportunity to shine. She became so enraged then, from her pregnancy hormones, she mixed a little bit of rat poison with my supper. She said she wanted me to wind up in the hospital, but she never wanted to physically hurt the baby or myself. She said she deserved a reduced punishment as she never expected me to offer her husband my plate. And since I essentially poisoned her spouse, of course, the judge answered her pleadings. She was put to prison and will be far from our life for some considerable while. Jamie is also at last free, since she has also effectively divorced him. We have seen him over the months and keep including him into our family events whenever we can. He informed me that it was never my fault. When we spoke, I profusely apologized to him for handing my plate to him. Hearing that I had been rehearsing it over and over again in my thoughts, wishing I could have done things differently so he was never poisoned, I started to cry. That Jamie is doing well right now makes me happy. Regarding Harry and myself, our family now boasts a baby daughter. Our daughter's presence has warmed and lit our life. Despite the shadows of the past, still there being a big brother makes our son Nate very happy, and he has been loving and caring toward his little sister. Seeing our kids connect makes us appreciate things. My parents and in-laws have been there for us all through, guiding us through this new phase of our life. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.